overcome perfectionism and the anxiety that it causes. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Kim, and I help female entrepreneurs to overcome anxiety and perfectionism in 21 days so they can scale their businesses with ease. So, first things first, I just wanted to start with telling you a little story about a friend that I had who she started her business a couple years ago, and it was slowly gaining momentum. She would do stuff. I was really excited for her. She would keep getting wins, and yeah, it was challenging because it always is when you first start a business, but things were tracking in a good direction, and it was growing, and she was excited about it. But whenever I would be like, oh my God, that's amazing, that's a win, she would be like, yeah, but this could have been better. I could have done this differently, or I messed up here. And the thing is this is not the vibe. When you start a business, it's so easy for us to get into this thing of oh, this thing could have been better, that thing could have been better, I messed up on this, this thing wasn't good, I'm not good enough to put this out here, I'm dropping the ball on posting on social media. And it's not saying that we want to allow ourselves to slack off and not have a consistent attitude towards things, but also knowing that the biggest predictor of success in business is consistency. And I know it sounds so boring and so basic, but the thing is if you never give up, inevitably you're going to create the success you want. So the thing is you can't give up. And then you also need to become your best cheerleader, because if you're showing up with this energy of oh, it could be better, this could be better, I messed up this, then that's what people are going to pick up on, and they're going to feel that. It will come through even if they don't hear it in words. And it just halts your progress because your brain wants you to win. We are hardwired to keep doing things that make us feel we've accomplished something, because we want to feel we're moving forward. And so your brain is hardwired to want to seek out those things that make you feel you had a win. So if you're constantly doing something and it is a win, but then you're sabotaging that by being oh, it could have been better, you're not excited for your success, your brain doesn't feel motivated to keep moving towards that, because it's well, if that thing is just so meh for you, why do we need to keep doing it? And also, when you're constantly being hard on yourself that, it really eats away at your self-esteem. And feeling worthy and deserving of what you want to create is the best way to manifest it in. And when I say manifest, I don't mean we're sitting on our couch waiting for it to drop into our laps. I mean when you feel worthy and deserving of having something, you're yeah, I'm gonna go out there and get it because I know I deserve to have that thing. And the way that you build that self-esteem is how you talk to yourself. We are so much harder on ourselves than anybody else is. And some of us think that this is a virtue, but it's really not, because it's about striking that fine balance of being self-reflective and knowing what you could have done better, but also celebrating your wins when you have them. Because I was saying before, your brain wants to win. So when you're able to celebrate those wins and really overemphasize it to yourself, then your brain is oh, okay, we're gonna do more of that because that makes us feel good. And when you lose confidence in yourself and over and over you're constantly telling yourself how this could have been better, I need to do this different, this metric needs to be better, I need to show up here more, your business is slowly going to start to disappear, because you're going to be so critical and so controlling, and you're going to get so defeated after a while that it will just be easier for you to hide, because you make yourself feel so bad and so wrong about doing those things that will move your business forwards. And then at some point your brain's going to be I don't really think you want to do this. You're really mean to yourself when you do this. So why do we want to do that? Or you're going to end up burning yourself out, because on some level you think that if you overwork yourself, somehow you'll be worthy and deserving of having what you want, which never works. I will tell you that right now, spoiler alert. And then over time, you get more afraid to put yourself out there. You're afraid to get it wrong. You feel you need to control the situation, and you're never happy with what actually transpires or occurs. And then you can't really get into that place of surrender. And then you're just trying to control the situation, and that doesn't usually turn out in a good way. So this constant pattern of perfectionism and the anxiety that it's causing, it just really halts your motivation in your tracks. And I mean, motivation is a whole other topic, and I don't think we should solely rely rely on motivation for trying to build our businesses. But if you're being the person who's self-sabotaging yourself by being so hypercritical of everything you do, you're not going to feel motivated to do it. Like, why would you want to do something if straight away every time you do it someone was like really critical of you? You're like, well, I just won't do it then. And your brain sees it exactly the same way. So how can you overcome this? Okay, so the first thing is making it about other people instead of being about yourself. And so when we're being really perfectionistic and being like, oh, this thing's not perfect, I don't look good enough to put it out, like blah, 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 whatever story you're telling yourself, you're being selfish. And like, I'm sorry if this hurts a little bit, but it's like you have the desire to create a business from a place of like being of service, and that desire is in you for a reason. Like, our desires are ours because we're meant to have them. And also, I'm sure that you having your business is helping other people. You're solving a problem, you're making other people's lives easier. But if you're deciding that you're not perfect enough, you're not good enough, you're too anxious about like what other people will think of you to actually show up and share that message, and so you're like, well, I'll just keep it to myself then, like I won't talk about it or tell anyone that I can do this thing for them. And then like, think of all those people that aren't going to be helped. Like, ultimately it's selfish. It's selfish for you to have something that can help other people and decide that because of your own BS that you're telling yourself, you're not going to go out there and share it with them. Like, what if your offer was the thing that completely changed someone's life and you were just telling yourself that you didn't look good on camera, so you didn't want to be like uncomfortable and like put something out there because like you didn't want to feel uncomfortable? It ultimately comes down to how you're making yourself feel bad about that thing. And if you're just going to be the person who does that, it's selfish. You're saying that like your comfort and like not willingness to go out of your comfort zone is more important than like your need to help someone who totally needs your help. And so if this stings a little bit, good, because when you're uncomfortable, hopefully it's going to make you move. So like, knowing that like you not showing up and sharing things because you can't control it all completely and it's not perfect, that's selfish. You need to stop doing that. The world needs what you have to share. And the second thing is, it's safe not to get it right. Like, nothing bad is going to happen. And I know so many of us, we grew up in conditions where this was not the case, where it wasn't safe to get it wrong, where we felt like we were going to be criticized or something bad was going to happen, or we didn't want to be noticed for getting it wrong, or if we got it wrong, it meant that we weren't good enough. I get it 100%. Like, it wasn't safe for you to be wrong as a child, but you're an adult now. So you need to start forming that relationship with that inner child version of you and telling you like, look, I'm becoming the parent to you now. I'm going to take care of you. It's safe for you to be the way you are. If this is what you need to tell yourself in the mirror every morning, good, do it. Like, that's a really good practice to get into. It's just like telling yourself all the things that you needed to hear as a child, but you didn't get to hear. Say it to yourself in the mirror every morning. Sure, it's going to feel weird, but like, if you're here, I'm sure that you're willing to get a little bit weird and do things that are a little bit uncomfortable so that you can get to where you want to go. Because ultimately, if you want to have a business, you're going to have to do a lot of things that feel uncomfortable and feel weird to you, and you're going to have to get comfortable with that. So you can start here. This is a great place to start. And the third thing is, you don't need to control everything. I think when we have this need to control everything, it shows up from a place of either we don't trust other people and we don't have faith that things are going to work out. And it could have been things in our past that taught us this story. But the thing is you can choose a new story right now, because the beliefs that you have are just thoughts that you keep thinking over and over again. Your beliefs come from the thoughts that you have and like strong emotional memories. And sometimes we need to do some work to heal these things in our past, because maybe we have trauma that happened. Maybe something happened that taught us we did need to control the situation. We weren't safe if we weren't controlling the situation. But the thing is that was in the past and we live in the present. And your body always wants to keep living in the past, but we need to teach it that it's okay and it's safe to be in the present moment, and we don't need to control everything. So it's like thinking of one aspect of one area of your life today. Where can you give up control just a little bit? I know it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to feel good, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. Like, you can't control everything. You can't control other people's opinions of you. And when we do something because we or when we don't do something because we're afraid of what other people will perceive us as or what they'll think about us, then it's really just a form of people pleasing because you're trying to control someone else's opinion of how they see you, and that doesn't work. Like, you can't control other people's how they perceive you. How they perceive you is based on like their whole story, their whole perspective, but you can't control that. And if you spend your whole life trying to control what other people do, you're going to be very frustrated, because would you like it if someone was trying to control you? Absolutely not. So this need to control the situation is something that you need to let go of if you want to remove that anxiety around showing up in your business, doing the things you need to do, and like focus on what you can control. And the things that you can control are like your mindset, the things you say to yourself, how much you move your body, like what you do in the morning, how much you show up. Those are the things you can control, and those are the things you should try and control. And everything that's outside of that, let it go, because it's not gonna work. And then also just knowing that like a lot of us, we have these stories around like us just not being good enough, and so that makes us really afraid, and we think we need to be perfect in order to be loved, in order to be valuable. But like the thing is it's not true. You're perfect as you are, you're lovable as you are, you're good enough as you are, and the world needs what you have to share. So knowing that like you don't have to get it right every time, it's okay to get it wrong. The way that we learn is through getting things wrong. We learn more through what we get wrong than what we get right. So it's like, if you are never wrong, you'll never learn anything. And I know it sounds scary, especially if you're like new to hearing this, but like it's just gonna have to be that way. You're not always gonna get it right. You're gonna make mistakes, and mistakes are a good thing, because the only thing that's bad about failure, and I don't even really believe in the idea of failure, I think you just find a way that doesn't work, is that like you just found a way that didn't work, and that's okay. It doesn't mean anything about you. It's like the story that we create out of what happens, that's what matters. So our mind is creating meaning out of everything every second of the day. When you're awake, probably when you're asleep as well, it's always creating meaning out of things. So you're in charge of the meaning you create. And if you have something happen and you start telling yourself a story and that story doesn't feel good, you are able to tell yourself a different story. You don't have to keep believing the same old story that you need to be perfect to be loved, or that if you fail somehow everything is going to fall apart. It's just totally not true. And every time you do something, and every time you get it wrong, or even when you get it right, then that's when you're able to get better at doing it. So we're our harshest critics, but when we start to question that voice in our head and decide that like it's ultimately not true, that's when we're free to live the life that we want to live. So basically, to recap, you need to work on your self-work. You need to decide that what you're doing is good enough. It's safe to get it wrong. You need to let go of control, and you need to start speaking to yourself in a way that's like affirmative and positive and loving. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, let me know below. Subscribe and like my channel if you're on YouTube. And if you need help with this, I can help you. So book in a call with me and we can chat about how I can help you overcome this.